Hello everyone, welcome to my channel TechieTaught. So in this is the part 2 of my the last discussion, which is about the matching strategy. The Spring Boot version 2.6 onwards is following the path pattern parser matching strategy. But before 2.6, it was default to like AntPathMatcher strategy. So all those the details about these two strategies we have already discussed in part 1. So I think you can go through. Otherwise, I will share the link of my part 1 video where I have explained about all these standards for this AntPathMatcher and which version of Spring Boot supports these. And then the Spring Boot 2.6 onwards, the default matching strategy is path pattern or path-pattern-parser, and it has certain standards, right? So if you won't follow the same instructions or the standards mentioned here, so you will get like errors like your application context is not able to create, your application is not starting up, your bin is not able to instantiate, and so on. So all those things I have already covered. So today what we'll do is we'll integrate this, the Swagger APIs with our Spring Boot application. So the Swagger API is basically all these dependencies. Swagger dependencies is like available through the SpringFox. Like SpringFox provides this, and we can see integrating the SpringFox libraries with our Spring Boot application. And there is one issue with the SpringFox currently in almost all these versions. Like the latest version is 3.0. We can check that. Let me just check. So this is one thing, SpringFox boot starter. We need this, and then we also need Swagger 2, and then we also need the EY. So these three dependencies we need, and we can see the latest version. You can see the 3.0. Just click on this, and Swagger 2 also we need. This is also 3.0, and then the other one is okay. So now all are 3.0, right? So this Swagger versions basically assumes that all the Spring versions, like whether it's a old or the new or the any latest version available, internally used AntPathMatcher as a default matching strategy. And so the SpringFox expects, or the Swagger API expects, all these URLs, whatever we are forming, and so it is expecting in this way, or like basically this way. But since in 2.6 onwards, the Spring Boot it is using a different parsing strategy, which is path-pattern-parser, and has different basically the standards to form the request URLs. So in that case, if you integrate Swagger with your Spring Boot latest versions, you will get error, the same error, like application context is not starting up, your beans related to your Swagger is not creating, and you will get such errors. And then what you need to do, so all this we'll discuss in this session. And if you have not watched what is this matching strategy and what are the different types of matching strategy we have, and then I have another video which is part 1, so you can go through the part 1 and just visit once, and which will be helpful before starting the part 2 of this video. And if you find this content useful, please subscribe and like, and even comment if you want. And let's get started then. And then if you can see, this is the project we have created in our part 1 videos, right? And you can see here what we did. We have just added two dependencies. One is the Spring Starter web, because we want to create certain REST APIs, right? And this is the default one. That means this is the standard one. Better to use always dev tools. And so these two I have just added. Then we can see our this resources and controllers, right? So we don't have much. I have just a controller package, and in this controller you can see I have a couple of endpoints. So here I was just explaining about different patterns, endpoint patterns. Okay, and out of these, like it is a combination of this AntPathMatcher as well as path-pattern-parser. So you can go through the other video, so it should be helpful. And let's see our application YML what we did. So here we have also disabled this because now we are pointing to the default strategy, which is the path pattern parser. And here in the application properties also I have commented out. So let's, and then what it say? Okay. Let me. So the error gone. So let me once again just clean it out. Okay, so all done now. So next, what we need to do? So next part is like we need to integrate our Swagger. So just for you can see what is our port we are using. So 8085 we are using, and we can just see our application should run uh, without error. Let's see that first. So we can see our port is 8085 and it started, right? So that means no issues at all. So let's integrate Swagger. So Swagger is the API we'll use to test our REST endpoints, right? So here to use Swagger, we need few dependencies. So what are those? So we can add these. Okay, so let's check our dependencies. So we need Swagger UI. So we need this dependency. We need to just copy this and we can add it here. And then we have to add the Swagger 2 as well. So let's copy this. And the last one is startup. So you can see we have added now three dependencies. One is Spring Fox Boot Starter, and other one is Spring Fox Swagger 2, and the third one is Spring Fox Swagger UI. So which will provide our all this UI to test the Swagger endpoints. Then once you have added all this dependencies, what you need to do, so you need to first create another package. So create one more package, and you can say this is your config package, right? And then let me just copy the name. So what we need to do, we need to create one config class, basically the Swagger config class. Okay, so you can create new and then class. We can say matching strategy Swagger config. Okay, and this one, what we need to do, so it should, okay, first let's create. So we are creating the class, and then we can create another abstract class. So we can say base Swagger config, and we can choose as abstract here. Okay, and what we need to do, we have to say match strategy Swagger config extends your base Swagger config, because we have to add a couple of methods in our base Swagger config class. And when you define your Swagger config class, you need to define, because it's a configuration class, right? So you have to define this class as a configuration class. So for that, you have to add configuration. Okay, so this is the first annotation you have to use, because you have to make this class as a configuration class, right? And then we need a Swagger related functionality, right? So for that, we have to add another annotation, right? So we have to say enable your all the Swagger related functionalities. Okay, so in this case, you have to say enable you can say enable Swagger 2. Okay, so we have different Swagger. So if you're using webflogs, you have to use this, and but now we can use this enable Swagger 2 in this application. Okay, so this much for this class. So then what we need to do, let's see in our okay, so here what we need to do. So in this base Swagger config class, right, we need few things. So when our Swagger will come, right, so we want to show our application name there, and application name or title or version. Okay, so for that you need to do like you have to define a private string, I will say app name. So I have to basically read the application name. Okay, and second I will say private string, and I'll say read the version. Okay, uh, so read this version. So how will read this app name and version? You have to come here in this application YML file, and you can see we have defined our application name here. Okay, so then what we need to do is so we have to define Spring application and name. So for this, we have to here what we need to use is add value. So this value annotation is mainly used to read your properties value, your like values from your properties file. So here, what you need to do is you need to pass like that path. So the path is now we can say up to this Spring application. We can say this as starting with the dollar and then the curly brace, and you can say this. So Spring dot, right, application dot, you have to read like name. So you are basically reading Spring dot application dot name. So then whatever the name you have defined here, so it will display. The rest part is now the version. The same way you can define. So here we have to define this. So project and then version, and then you have to put so project colon version, and then you have to say project dot version, and which will actually read the version from this home.xml file. So basically you have defined this, so it will show that version here. Okay, and then that's it. So then what you need to do, you have to say project dot version. So you have to say project dot version, then which will show you the app version. So these two things you have to add, and then what you need to do is in this base configuration class you have to do basically you have to create bins, right? So what kind of bin you need to create? So this for this Swagger, you have to create a bin of type Docket. So let me just create a bin here because it's a configuration class, and we can create a bin here. So when application starts, right, this class will be loaded and then the bin will be available. Okay, so let's see public, and we need a bin of type Docket. So this Docket is part of the Spring Fox, right? So Docket, and then we can say the method name. So we'll say API. So API is the method name here. And then what you need to do is we have to define this as a bin. So for this, we can define bin like this. Okay. And then we have to create the bin now. So how will create? So for that, you can say return new. We have to create the Docket bin here. Okay, so here what you need to pass. So you have to pass your documentation type or document type. So for this, you have to pass documentation type, so which is provided by the Spring Fox API, and dot you have Swagger 2. So you have to use this. Then what else? So you now created like object and you pass one Swagger 2 as a parameter. So this is the documentation type. And then it has a couple of other methods, like it also required give me some information about your API. So it will see type about API, and you can see there is a few other methods, but we'll just discuss about what is API info. So API info will take an object of API info. This API info is also is a class available in this Spring Fox library. So you can say double click, and then you have to create one now API info class. So for this, let's say we can say get API info. Okay, and then what you need to do. So Let me set this. And here you can create, you see, create your API info, right? Or create this method. Basically, we need this. And if you can see, this is our one method, which is a private method, okay? And it also returns the API info. And this API info is provided by the Spring Fox. So now what you need to do, we need to now create API info class. So how will create that? So for this, you need to create like this. You can say API info equal to, there is a API info, there is a class API info builder. So you have to say API info builder dot, and then what you have to do is, okay, no dot. So you have to say it's a class, right? So you have to say new API info builder, right? And then you have to say dot, and you can say that you have to pass a couple of things. So I have to pass now the app name and app version. So for providing the application name, you should have something called title. So in this title, right, so you have to pass your app name, so which we have already get it. So what is the app name? We have already reading from the properties file. So that we passed here, right? And then we can say there is another method called version. So here also we can provide the app version. Okay. So these two things we have provided, and then we have to say build. So when you will type build, so it will create an object of API info. Okay. And that API info we are storing here, and then we are returning this API info object. And then here in this case, what we are getting, so we are creating a Docket object, and we are passing what we are passing document type as a constructor type. So means constructor accept one parameter where we are passing a documentation type, which is Swagger2, and then we are calling API info to pass our API information, which is nothing but the app name and the version, and then what else. So here you can see there are a couple of other methods as well. So you will see there is should be something called something called select you can use. So in this select, what you need to do is after the select, it will ask what kind of APIs you can say. So APIs, right? So you can choose these APIs, and you can say you have to pass some predicate there. So what you need to pass here, you can pass, there is a class called request handler selectors. So there is, you will find one class called request handler selectors, right? And you can see a couple of values. So you can have any, none, or like that. So you are basically saying API info.api. So any kind of APIs like you can choose. So Swagger can test any kind of APIs. Okay. So then you have to pass what kind of path or URL pattern. So you can say like Swagger can accept. So you can say paths. Here also you can pass the predicate. So here you can pass even, there is a path selector, path selectors. Here also they have a couple of value. So you can pass you can see here the first one and so the Swagger assumes or Swagger is basically supports the AntPathMatcher strategy. So that's the reason we have one method called here, and we can even specify the ANT pattern strategy, which we have already discussed in our part 1 video. So this is the reason it is actually up to now this version it doesn't support the latest strategy, which is path pattern parser. So that's the problem, and then we'll see what kind of error we'll get. So here we can just choose any path, we'll just accept. Okay, and then what we need to do, so let me just expand it. You are just creating Docket, right? Object. So then how will create this? You have to click on this, and then you have a build method, so which will return a Docket object. Right? So basically pretty much this, and if you just format it, yeah. So we can see, so we are creating a Docket, we are passing the documentation type, we are passing the API information, then we are saying passing what kind of APIs it can basically allow or accept, and then what kind of path it can also accept, and then we are calling the build method to create this bin. Okay, and then this is the method we have defined, which actually returns a API info bin and which returns the app name and the version. So when you run this Swagger application, we can see this application name and version is visible in our Swagger page. uh, I think these are the basic configuration here in this class, abstract class you can provide, and this Swagger config, extend this base Swagger config, and then you have enable Swagger annotations, which will enable the Swagger features into your application. So basically pretty much this, and we have added this, and it's all good. And then let's just build it once. Build is not required, but sometimes in my Eclipse it's not working or it's not loading properly the classes. So it's better to just have a build. Yeah, we can see a couple of errors here, and yeah. So see, if when you will start building, right, it is saying even the context load. See, it is failed to load the application context, and it is also failed to load our bin. So basically, let me just copy this, and this is something I was talking about, the error you will get. So when you will integrate the Swagger or Spring Fox dependencies into your Spring Boot latest version. So let's see this. So basically, you can see here it is not able to create your application context. It also not able to create your this bin, and it is getting some null point exception, right? So this is something at the time of your when you are building your application. So let's see what else you are getting. Yeah, so almost same. So same error you are getting, and then let's even start our application. So if we start our application also, we'll get, let me just clear the error, and then when you'll start your application, you can see your application is not starting and giving some the similar errors. Basically, you can see your server is stopped now because of this error, and you can see it is also now failing. Your application context failed, your application context failed, and then failed to instantiate your beans, right? And getting some null pointer exception and so on. So when you get such kind of errors, let me just copy this error as well. So when you get this kind of error, you will come to know that this is something the problem related to your matching strategy pattern. So basically, you have to come to your Spring Boot application, and then you have to go to your either application YML file or properties file. If you are using properties file, then you have to just enable this. That means you are now pointing, you are saying your Spring Boot application, please point your matching strategy to the older one, which is AntPathMatcher. This way it will work. Since we are now going to use the application YML files only, so in this case, what you need to do, you need to add this. So you have to add spring.mvc.patch path match, and then you have to add this matching strategy. So here you have to use and path matcher. So explicitly you are saying to Spring Boot that don't use that path pattern parser matching strategy, instead use this. And then what will happen? So now it will run this, right? Let's start build. So I've just done Maven install. Let's see. Right. So now your build is success, and now you can start your application as well. So now the application is like started, and there is no error, and the port is it's starting on 8085, and we can actually even test that. And we can see what is our context. So type http://localhost, then your 8085, and then what you need to do, we have to use this context, and followed by you have to say swagger-ui. Okay, so this is the path you need to construct. And you can see this one, matching strategy pattern, right? So this is nothing but your application name you have defined here. So this is the application name you have defined here. And this is the version name it is reading. It is actually reading from here. So that's the reason it is showing the application version here with this. And then this is the documentation, and the port is the default like Swagger documentation. Basically, you can go through this, and then you can come and check these are all your endpoints, and you can test all these endpoints here. So basically, like I have completed the matching strategy in details. Like the part one covers the types of different types of matching strategies Spring Boot uses, like used in previous version as well as the latest version, and then what are those, what are the different standards they followed, and if you won't follow the standards, what will happen, and what kind of error you will get, and how to resolve it, and then if you use the latest Spring Boot along with the Swagger API, and then what will happen, and what kind of error you will get, and how to resolve that. So all those things we have covered, and one more information I can provide: if you are using latest Spring Boot with, there is a Spring actuator. So if you are using Spring actuator and then you are also using Swagger, right? So in that case, you will get again the same error, like application context is not able to create, your beans are not getting created affected due to this matching strategy. The reason behind it, about this error is you can override your matching strategy for your Spring Boot application, right? But you cannot override this matching strategy of Spring Actuator. So Spring Actuator by default so now like used or supports the matching strategy, which is path-pattern-parser. So you cannot say explicitly, hey, Spring Actuator, please use AntPathMatcher instead of path-pattern-parser. You cannot say that. So that's the reason if you're using Actuator, Spring Actuator, and latest Spring Boot application, which is greater than 2.6 or 2.6 at least, along with Swagger, then you cannot actually resolve this error. So either you have to drop your Spring Actuator or you have to drop Swagger. Otherwise, you have to write your own set of APIs, whatever like Spring Actuator is doing. You can also do that by customizing it. So I will cover that in another session, and but up to this, hopefully this matching strategy and the issues will be clear. And if you found this video useful, right, so you can just subscribe, like, and if you want to comment anything, you can comment. But please go through this in details, and then it will be really useful. So we have done. Thank you so much. Then let's see with the latest upcoming videos.